From the outside, Troy Parrott's journey looks like one of those overnight success stories that football fans love to repeat. A young boy from Dublin who became a Premier League legal striker before he was old enough to rent a car. But the truth behind Troy's rise is far more complicated, far more surprising, and far more cinematic than the highlight reels ever show. Because behind the goals, the celebrations, and the growing spotlight around his name was a story of quiet ambition, quiet pressure, and the quiet belief that he was destined for something bigger than the world around him. And by 2025, that belief wasn't just paying off. It was turning into a lifestyle, a reputation, and a personal evolution that no one, not even his early critics, saw coming. Troy Parrott grew up in the flats of inner-city Dublin, a place that sharpens boys fast. It was a neighborhood where football wasn't just a hobby, it was a ticket, one of the few that could take a kid beyond the narrow streets and gray skies. While other children talked about jobs or apprenticeships, Troy's dreams were already international. Coaches at the time described him as a rare fire, a player with intensity that didn't match his age. They spoke about the way he trained, as if every drill meant something. The way he looked at older players, not with fear, but with hunger. That hunger would eventually carry him beyond Ireland, all the way to Tottenham Hotspur, but not before he understood what sacrifice really meant. The moment Spurs signed him, Troy's world changed. Suddenly, the expectations grew sharper, the spotlight became hotter, and the conversations around him were less about potential and more about proof. He was only 16, traveling between Ireland and London, living in two worlds, one filled with the comfort of home, the other filled with a pressure cooker that demanded excellence. He learned quickly that talent opens the door, but discipline is what keeps you in the room. As he moved through the Spurs system, fans and pundits began labeling him as Ireland's next great football hope. The young striker who would follow the path of Robbie Keane and the pressure of replacing a national legend is something most kids aren't prepared for. But Troy handled it quietly, taking loan spells in League One, the Championship, and even the Eredivisie as part of a larger mission, to build himself into a complete footballer, one who wasn't defined by hype, but by production. 2023 and 2024 became pivotal. His loan spells showed glimpses of the player he was becoming, faster, stronger, more decisive in front of goal. And by 2025, Troy Parrott wasn't just a prospect anymore. He was a weapon, a striker with a new sense of confidence, a refined technical edge, and a work ethic shaped by every challenge he had faced along the way. Money began to follow. Influential people began to pay attention. Interest from top-flight clubs became louder. And slowly, the lifestyle of a young European star began forming around him. What surprises many fans is that behind the scenes, Troy lives far more intentionally than people assume. While fame around young footballers often leans towards parties, nightlife, and chaos, Troy built an inner circle that protected him from distractions. And one person at the center of that circle was his girlfriend, a woman fans often see glimpses of on social media but rarely know anything about. In reality, she became one of the key stabilizing forces in his life. She was there during the tough loan spells, the lonely nights abroad, the moments when criticism felt louder than support. She saw the version of Troy that the world didn't see, the one questioning his next move, the one fighting the pressure to live up to the expectations placed upon him before he even turned 20, the one who wanted to make Ireland proud but also carve out his own identity. Their relationship evolved quietly, built away from the cameras. She was educated, grounded, focused, the opposite of fame-hungry, and that energy helped Troy lock in mentally. While many players his age were still trying to understand who they were, Troy was building structure, training, recovery, rest, repeat, and whenever he stepped out of that circle, she was usually by his side, often dressed in understated luxury, the kind that whispers rather than screams. By 2025, the couple began traveling more frequently during off-season weeks. Italy, the Greek islands, Dubai, and short escapes to Paris became a part of their life. Fans only saw curated images, sunsets, yacht decks, rooftop dinners overlooking cities. He later added a Porsche Cayenne for comfort and training day practicality, but the real symbol of his new status was in the cars. It was the home he invested in for his family back in Ireland. A modern property with clean architecture, a large yard, and space for everyone to live comfortably. Troy's message was simple. Before he built a mansion for himself, he wanted to upgrade the lives of the people who raised him. But that didn't stop him from stepping into the world of high-end living. He became a regular face at premium suit fittings, wearing tailored designer pieces at events. His watch collection slowly expanded, Audemars Piguet for matchday arrivals, Rolex GMTs for travel, and one understated Patek Philippe as the centerpiece of his look. Nothing about his style was loud. It was calculated, intentional, mature beyond his age. Financially, his net worth in 2025 reflects that evolution. With improved club wages, performance bonuses, national team earnings, sponsorship deals, brand partnerships, and wise financial management, Troy Parrott pushed his estimated net worth into the £5 million range, a number expected to climb dramatically as he enters his prime years. And unlike many players who spend with impulse, Troy invests with foresight. Property, index funds, long-term financial planning, quiet wealth, the type that lasts. But even with the rising fame, the increasing wealth, and the growing lifestyle, nothing defines Troy Parrott more than the fire that started in Dublin, the same hunger that refuses to let him settle. Because 2025 is not the peak of his story. It's the turning point. It's the year he transitions from a promising young striker to a man shaping the narrative of his own career. As Troy's football matured, so did the way he moved through the world. By 2025, he was no longer the quiet teenager arriving at training with wide eyes, looking up at everyone around him. He had become the guy younger academy players watched in silence, studying his movements, his attitude, his routine. They noticed how he arrived early, how he left late, how he rarely wasted a session. They noticed that even on days when he looked tired, when the schedule was heavy and the pressure mounting, he still added something extra. Extra finishing drills, extra hold-up, play practice, extra movement around the box, rehearsing runs that the average fan would never notice but that defenders would come to fear. And when training ended, real life began. For Troy, that life had begun to stretch beyond just football pitches and locker rooms. Sponsorship calls were coming in more frequently now. Global sportswear brands wanted his face. Boot deals were on the table. Lifestyle brands, those with an interest in tapping into a young, rising European football audience, sent invitations, proposals, and ideas. He picked carefully. If a brand didn't feel authentic, he passed. If a partnership didn't align with the kind of player and man he wanted to become, he walked away, even when the money was tempting. That decision alone set him apart from many young stars who jump at the first bag offered. Troy was building a brand, a legacy, not just a moment. His girlfriend watched all of this up close. She saw the spreadsheets, the meetings, the calls, the negotiations, while social media might have portrayed her as just the footballer's girlfriend. In reality, she was part of his long-term strategy, advising, reacting, pointing out red flags, keeping the emotional temperature steady when opportunities seemed overwhelming. On nights when he was coming home exhausted from training and media obligations, she made sure home felt like a refuge, not another arena. They had a simple rule. Inside their home, he wasn't Troy Parrott, the striker. He was just Troy, a young man who still liked joking around, playing video games, watching movies, and escaping from the noise of the football world. Their life together began to take on subtle markers of success. Weekend date nights weren't just takeaways and cheap cinema tickets anymore. Sometimes it was Michelin-starred restaurants, tasting menus, private dining rooms, and drives through the city in the AMG music playing low. The rest of the world blocked out. On holidays, they favored ocean view suites and boutique hotels, places where privacy was respected and luxury felt natural. They were still grounded, but they were no longer living small. Success had opened the door, and they chose to walk through together. In Dublin, Troy's presence had become a symbol. He wasn't just the kid who got out. He was the kid who stayed connected. He still visited his old areas, still supported youth teams, still showed love to local coaches and kids who reminded him of himself. Sometimes, he would show up unannounced at grassroots pitches, boots in the trunk, just to speak to teenagers chasing the same dream that once kept him awake at night. He had begun to learn that real legacy isn't just about what you earn or what you own, but what you leave behind in people. On the pitch, his evolution continued. By 2025, he had built himself into a modern striker. Mobile, aggressive, able to drop deep, link play, spin off the shoulder of defenders, and appear inside the box with timing that made defending against him a nightmare. Coaches valued him not just for his goals, but for his mentality. He was the kind of player who would press hard in the 90th minute, the same way he did in the 9th, who would run for a lost cause, who would peel wide if it created space for a teammate to score. These little things don't always make highlight reels, but they win the trust of managers, and that trust turns into minutes, and those minutes turn into money. With that money, Troy's financial profile stepped up another level. In 2025, he wasn't just living on salary. He was benefiting from layered income, base club wages, improved terms as his performance and profile grew, match bonuses, goal bonuses, appearance fees, national team money, endorsement deals, licensing, and social media campaigns. Having already passed the million mark years before, his total estimated net worth now hovered comfortably in that £5 million bracket, with serious potential to push toward £10 million of future transfers and new contracts unfolded in his favor. He began to take investing more seriously. Sitting in quiet boardrooms with financial advisors, Troy listened more than he spoke. He understood that every headline about a player going broke after retirement was a warning, so he diversified. Some money went into additional property, apartments in growing city areas where rental markets were strong. Some went into long-term investment funds, and a smaller, more experimental portion went towards tech startups and lifestyle ventures that, if successful, could multiply many times over. He was building something that could last long after the cheers faded. The more his off-field portfolio grew, the more his lifestyle reflected a man aware of his status. His fashion sense stepped into the spotlight. At events, he leaned into a modern, clean look. Fitted shirts, subtle jewelry, sneakers paired with sharp trousers, designs that looked expensive without screaming labels. Luxury houses began sending him pieces, limited sneakers, jackets, accessories, hoping he would wear them publicly. For Troy, fashion became less about looking rich and more about expressing the maturity he had earned. Yet even in this new world of designer wardrobes and five-star living, he never fully drifted from the grounded side of himself. Those closest to him would say that his happiest moments weren't always the flashy ones. Sometimes it was a simple night in with his girlfriend, a home-cooked meal, a Netflix series, and the knowledge that he'd done his job that week. Sometimes it was a quiet walk on the beach during an off-season trip, their phones put away, just talking about life after football, about dreams, about the kind of family they wanted to build one day. These private conversations added depth to his public image. Beneath the sharp jawline, the tattoos, the carefully timed Instagram posts, there was a young man thinking far beyond his 20s. Of course, being in a relationship with a professional footballer in 2025 wasn't simple. His girlfriend had to endure online commentary, constant speculation, and the invisible pressure of being watched. But they created boundaries. Not everything was content. Not every moment was posted. Some anniversaries, some milestones, some trips belonged only to them. This choice to keep parts of their love offline gave the relationship breathing room, and that stability reflected back in his performances. When a man feels secure at home, his mind is clearer on the pitch. Troy's national team career played a huge role in his story, too. Wearing the green jersey of Ireland carried emotional weight. Every call-up felt like a reminder of where he came from. Every anthem, every away match, every chance to score in front of traveling Irish fans waving flags and singing songs. His goals for Ireland carried extra meaning. They weren't just numbers on a stat sheet. They were messages to the kid he used to be, to the city he came from, to the family that sacrificed so much to give him a chance. As his reputation grew, he began to feel the shifting energy of the football world. Transfer rumors, speculative headlines, agents visiting the stadium, clubs quietly asking if he'd be available in the next window. Some talked about him being ready for a long-term run in a top-5 European league. Others saw him as a future leader for a rising project club where he could become the face of the team. Wherever the path leads, one thing is certain. Troy's story is no longer just about getting his chance. It's about what he does with it. Lifestyle features in magazines and websites started framing him as one of the most interesting young Irish players of his generation, not just because of his talent, but because of his composure. High-end photo shoots captured him in minimalist settings, monochrome backdrops, tailored outfits, deliberate poses. Commentators began to say he had star presence, that intangible quality that makes a footballer feel bigger, heavier, more important when the cameras switch on. Yet in the middle of all that, real life continued. Family birthdays, siblings asking for tickets, parents watching games with nervous hands, old friends joking in WhatsApp groups, sending memes and voice notes after matches. His girlfriend fit into this ecosystem naturally, respected by his family, treated not just as the girlfriend but as someone who had walked the journey with him. The more his world expanded, the more important this inner circle became. They were his reality check. They reminded him where he came from and where he still needed to go. By late 2025, when fans talk about Troy Parrott's lifestyle, they see the highlight version. The cars, the trips, the designer fits, the glimpses of luxury apartments and hotels, the occasional private jet flight for preseason tours or international duty. But behind that curated feed is a more layered truth, one of quiet discipline, deliberate choices, and a young man learning how to grow into wealth without letting it swallow him. Because deep down, Troy knows that everything he has, the money, the status, the attention, is rented from the game, and the game can take it back quickly. That's why, while the world calls it a lavish lifestyle, he calls it a responsibility. To his younger self, to his family, to the future. He is trying to build with the woman standing beside him through every high and low. By the time 2025 reached its midpoint, it became clear that Troy Parrott was entering the most defining chapter of his career. So far, the chapter where a footballer either remains a promising talent or transforms into a household name. Every training session, every match day, every interview seemed to carry more weight, as if the universe was quietly asking him the same question over and over. Are you ready? And through all the noise, Troy answered not with words, but with improvement. The physicality in his game grew sharper. His confidence appeared not just in touches or goals, but in the way he carried himself, chin up, shoulders set, eyes focused. He looked like a man who wasn't just playing football. He was shaping his identity, building a brand, and writing a story. The lifestyle surrounding him continued to expand in ways that reflected both maturity and ambition. His travel calendar became a tapestry of contrasts. Vibrant summer escapes in Mykonos, where white buildings met turquoise seas, quiet mountain retreats in Switzerland for mental resets, and short fashion-driven trips to Milan and Paris for events or brand shoots. These trips, often shared with his girlfriend, became an essential balance to the hyper-sure world of professional football. They walked through old European streets like any young couple, laughing, exploring, slipping into cafes. But the background details gave away who he had become. The reserved VIP entrances, the private dining experiences, the hotel penthouses, the security that stayed discreetly out of frame. But even as he stepped deeper into luxury, Troy remained anchored. He wasn't the type to lose himself in the glamour. He always knew how hard it was to get where he was, and he understood how easy it was to lose it all. His girlfriend's presence amplified that grounding. She was the quiet compass in a world filled with bright lights, online praise, and constant comparison. Whenever he drifted too close to the edge of exhaustion, she pulled him back to center. Whenever he doubted himself, she reminded him of the boy from Dublin who had fought for everything he had. She wasn't just part of his life, she had become one of the pillars holding up his growth. As offers and opportunities increased, they began discussing their future more seriously. Not in the rushed, impulsive way of young couples overwhelmed by fame, but in a deliberate, thoughtful way. Where to live long-term, how to expand their financial base, when to start building the family they both dreamed of. These conversations often happened late at night, after training, after dinner, after the world grew quiet. She would sit cross-legged on the couch. He would lean back, exhausted but engaged. They built their roadmap slowly, piece by piece, knowing that stability off the pitch fuels excellence on it. His home reflected this evolution. Built with privacy in mind and surrounded by secure greenery, the interior blended minimalism with warmth, polished floors, soft lighting, curated furniture, framed photographs that captured their journey. The living room became their sanctuary, with panoramic windows overlooking a clean skyline. In the evenings, Troy would light scented candles, put on a playlist with a smooth blend of R&B and soft electronic beats, and unwind from the intensity of the day. Guests often commented on the vibe of the house.com. Intentional, almost peaceful. It was a direct reflection of the couple who built it. His car collection expanded too, but not recklessly. Troy chose pieces that matched his personality. A blacked-out Mercedes GLE Coupe for practical luxury, a Porsche 911 for surgical precision on open roads, and a Range Rover Autobiography for long-distance comfort. Cars, for him, were more than machines, they represented stages of achievement. Every ignition carried memories of early mornings in Dublin when he used to imagine a life like this, never knowing it would one day become his reality. Yet despite the growing splendor, the most valuable thing Troy possessed in 2025 wasn't material. It was stability, emotional, financial, and psychological. Very few players his age could say the same. Fans witnessed the highlights, but few saw the discipline that created them. The specialized recovery sessions, the strict sleep schedules, the personalized nutrition plans, the late-night tactical videos he watched quietly on his iPad. Football wasn't something he did, it was something he lived. And that lifestyle carried a cost few outsiders truly understood. His girlfriend understood it better than anyone. She saw the sacrifices behind the smiles, the games played through pain, the ice baths at midnight, the interviews he did even when mentally drained, the travel fatigue that built up over long seasons. She never glamorized his life. She respected its difficulty, and in turn, he valued her presence in ways words rarely capture. By late 2025, the media had begun to take notice. Articles surfaced calling him one of Ireland's brightest modern talents. Analysts dissected his pressing intensity, his link-up play, his intelligence inside the box. Social media pages dedicated to rising footballers frequently highlighted his performances, his fashion sense, and the mystery surrounding his relationship. Some fans speculated about engagement. Others dissected their Instagram posts for clues. Troy never confirmed anything, not because he was hiding, but because he believed love grows best in privacy. He handled fame with an unusual composure. While many young players chased clout, Troy chased consistency. While others showed everything, he revealed only what he wanted the world to see. His privacy became part of his brand, a paradoxical blend of openness and mystery that only made his story more compelling. He didn't need scandals or noise. His game spoke loudly enough. As 2025 approached its final months, conversations around his net worth became more frequent. Financial analysts estimated that between his club earnings, bonuses, sponsorships, and expanding business interests, his net worth comfortably sat in the £5 million range, with projections suggesting rapid growth over the next few seasons. And unlike many athletes whose wealth was locked solely in salary, Troy's money was working for him. Investments in real estate, tech innovations, athlete-driven merch, collaborations, and digital content rights meant his fortune was becoming multi-streamed. It was clear he wasn't simply earning, he was building an empire, slowly and strategically. But for all the numbers, luxuries, and achievements, Troy's true measure of success was far simpler. It was the look on his parents' faces when he upgraded their lifestyle. It was walking through Dublin and realizing kids saw him the same way he once saw Robbie Keane. It was hearing Irish fans chant his name in stadiums far from home, knowing he carried a nation's pride with him. And above all, it was waking up every morning beside someone who believed in him long before the world caught up. The beauty of Troy Parrott's story in 2025 is how grounded it remains. He lives the life of a rising star, the cars, the trips, the fashion, the financial momentum, yet he moves with the heart of the boy from Dublin who once chased footballs across worn-out fields with dreams bigger than anyone around him could understand. His journey isn't finished. It's only beginning. But he's already mastered something many never do, balancing fame with authenticity, ambition with gratitude, luxury with humility, and love with responsibility. If his early years were about potential, and his breakthrough years about development, then 2025 is about transformation. The transformation of a young striker into a public figure. The transformation of a couple into a future-building partnership. The transformation of a promising career into one with purpose, wealth, and legacy. And as the world watches Troy Parrott continue to rise, as goals multiply, as clubs circle with interest, as brands extend their hands, as fans scream his name in stadiums across Europe, one thing becomes clear. This is not a story of luck. It is a story of resilience, discipline, faith, and love. A story of a young Irishman who refused to fold under pressure, who embraced the weight of expectations, and who turned every hardship into fuel. Where he goes next will define the next decade of his life. But if his past and present are anything to go by, the future looks bright, global, lucrative, and historic. Because Troy Parrott, isn't just living a lavish lifestyle in 2025, he is living proof that dreams built in tough places can grow into realities more beautiful than anyone imagined.